Greetings and welcome to ValoU. I'm Zaladrith and I'll be your instructor for today. Today's class is Macro 201, Defaults Phase. The three phases of attack are Defaults, Execute, and Post-Plant. As attack, the Defaults phase is all about preparing for the other phases, setting up the map to increase the chances of your execute succeeding. One of the most important parts of defaulting is getting up close to a site before enemies know which site you're committing to. If the base gates were moved to be right up against the entrance of each site, for instance, it'd be easy to 5v2 every round during the execute phase, if defenders still evenly spread out their defenses like they normally would. This is because they wouldn't have time to drop defensive util or time to rotate against the 5 rush. Taking a step back, this means that a big part of defaults is fighting over map control. Map control is important because denying information to defenders on more areas of the map makes it so that you can get up closer to sites without them knowing, rotate between sites faster, and transition to the execute phase whenever you want. More map control also gives you additional angles of entry for the execute phase, as well as being able to delay or punish reinforcements. This is why defenders can test map control. Defenders could just choose to split their team 3 and 2 to each site and then wait, but that would surrender map control everywhere else. Attackers could then sneak through the entire rest of the map and attack either site from any or all sides, flanking defenders and forcing reinforcements from the other site to have to respect every single part of the map as they try to rotate. So, to avoid giving up map control for free, defenders often spread out to watch all entrances to their side of the map. This leads us to the general advantages held by each team. By nature of spawning with control of the spike sites, defenders start out with the map control to utilize defenders' advantage. If they want to maintain this map control, they need to guard all the entrances to it. However, from the art of war, if he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will everywhere be weak. This means that against a simple static spread out defense, attackers can choose to use numbers advantage wherever they choose to go, until the defenders have enough info to rotate players over in response to equalize that numbers advantage. And as a note, these typical advantages can also be inverted with set plays and lurkers, but those are topics for another class. Anyways, pretending that numbers and defenders' advantages balance each other out equally, both sides might trade down players evenly as well. However, since the amount of map control defenders need to hold does not change, but the number of defenders that can guard it can only drop, the value of a defender's life is higher than the value of an attacker's life during the defaults phase. The fewer defenders, the more gaps in defender map control, to the point where defenders might not even hear the site the spike is planted on. Defaults is also a time to bleed enemy utility. This leaves teams with less util for the execute and post-plant phases where it can be more impactful, though if you're not careful, you might end up wasting too much of your own team's util trying to bait out enemy util. A lot of utility must be used in advance of the actual execute to be effective, so threatening to execute can cause defenders to waste util without spending too much yourself, such as by loudly stomping around in their audio range. Similarly, the right defender util, like a molly, can block an attempted execute when attackers burn theirs, intending to commit to the execute with flashes, smokes, and scouting util. Any sort of stall buys time for defender rotations by stalling the execute or forcing attackers to rotate somewhere else. Destroying a sentinel setup and then resetting during defaults, for instance, might be difficult and take time, but can be a great way to soften up areas for an eventual execute later. A simple and safe example of this is forcing and breaking Sage Wall on split mid, and then coming back for a split B push later. Defaults is also a time to collect information and play off rotations. When attackers execute, they often want to hit the site with fewer defenders on it. However, the process of taking map control gives defenders the opportunity to see or hear attackers, which then draw their rotations. Thus, defaults phase is a dance where attackers unevenly apply pressure somewhere on the map, looking for picks with numbers advantage and forcing defender rotations and utility, then back off and apply pressure somewhere else later in the round, until they decide that it's either advantageous to, or they have no other choice but to continue to, the execute phase. In summary, a round can be divided into 3 phases: defaults, execute, and post-plant phases. The simplest way to think about defaults is that it's a time for teams to fight over map control close to sites, without giving away which site they want to execute on. Attackers often use numbers advantage, while defenders often use defenders advantage while contesting space. The defenders' lives are worth more than attackers' lives in the defaults phase. It's a good time to attempt to bleed enemy util, and it's a balance of taking space without giving too much information and drawing enemy rotations to the actual execute site.
30 seconds left.
That's all for today's lesson. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the lecturer or the TAs in the comments below. Thanks for attending, and we hope you enjoy your stay here at ValoU.